this meeting of the Dallas County Commissioners Court. We'll be considering items on our official agenda, recess for the court's informal work session, and hear from registered speakers. The court will then convene in closed session to consider matters as allowed by law. We will now consider item 9, our consent agenda. Is there a motion on the consent agenda? Oh, I'm sorry. We should do that. I'm sorry. We have a resolution from Commissioner Mike Cantrell. Commissioner, sorry about that.
Judge and Commissioners, it's my privilege today to issue a resolution. Randy, if you want to come forward with your wife, or Dr. Smith, if you want to come up. And I know that the juvenile department held a big party for Randy, but I did want to recognize him officially in court. And I'll read the resolution and move its adoption. Whereas the Dallas County Commissioners Court takes special notice when an individual is given faithful and dedicated service to Dallas County. And whereas Randy Wadley has faithfully served the citizens of Dallas County for the past 23 years while working with the youth of Dallas County and their families throughout his tenure in the juvenile department. And whereas Randy, a Dallas native, graduated from W.T. White High School and received a full track scholarship to attend Rice University, where he ultimately graduated with his bachelor's degree in business administration and finance. And whereas Randy began his career in the juvenile sector, when upon graduation he went to work for Harris County Juvenile Probation as a dorm parent, quickly ascending to supervisor, program director, and superintendent. And Randy returned to Dallas in 1981 and began his employment with Dallas County in the Dallas County Youth Village, residing at the Youth Village campus as a superintendent for 5 years. After leaving for a brief time, Randy Wadley returned in 1988 and worked dutifully in the juvenile department for the next 23 years, serving as the emergency shelter manager, director of institutional services, assistant director of juvenile department, and as the interim director on 2 different occasions. And whereas over the course of his career, Randy has served on several boards and committees that focused on youth, such as the Juvenile Crime Enforcement Coalition, executive committee established in 1998. He was integral in the planning, development, and implementation of the Juvenile Information System, as well as consistently participating and contributing a wealth of knowledge in the planning and development process of the Juvenile Case Management System, which will be implemented shortly. His vision, collaborative efforts, and knowledge resulted in the success of each project. Whereas Randy will be retiring from Dallas County, but will continue his work to augment the juvenile system as he has joined the Texas Conference of Urban Counties team to assist in the rollout of the Juvenile Case Management System. And whereas after more than 30 years of dedication and service to our youth, Randy will retire from Dallas County and is being recognized for his extraordinary efforts in building a safer and better community for our children, and will be sorely missed by all those who knew and worked with him over the years. Now therefore be it resolved that Dallas County Commissioners Court does hereby recognize and extend sincere appreciation to Randy Wadley for his valuable years of service to Dallas County, and further expresses best wishes for the future on the occasion of his retirement. And I so move.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Randy.
Okay. Randy, would you like to introduce your wife?
My wife?
Were you worried?
You bet.
Were you worried whether or not I was going to eye?
Sir?
Were you worried whether or not I was going to eye?
Oh, no, sir.
Randy's pretty
I
laid
heard
back.
you say some of us can remember, been around long enough to remember when, so. I would like to thank many of the members here, individuals here in the room.
Pull that mic up, Randy, please.
That have helped us at the Juvenile Department and me personally throughout the years. One of the things that I've enjoyed is the working relationship with all the different departments, from the budget office, Dr. Taylor's office, Shannon Brown for 100 years as our budget analyst, and purchasing and the purchasing department, and certainly the auditor's office, Virginia, and folks. It's just been wonderful to work with, and I think some of the successes that departments have in Dallas County with the challenges that Dallas County faces is a result of the partnerships and the teamwork that the various departments have with one another. And Mr. Thompson has been a wonderful asset to our department for years and years and years, even as a Youth Services Advisory Board member back 100 years ago at the Youth Village. So I really do appreciate it and appreciate his support. Thank you very much.
Randy, thank you for so many years.
And
I
Dr.
really appreciate it. Coming in as the new chief, I have to say that Randy was instrumental in filling in a lot of the gaps that I've missed. And he also came from Harris County, which is also where I came from additionally, so it was good to have that in common. The short time I was able to work with Randy, I can understand why he's getting this resolution today. He is a dedicated servant for Dallas County. He's a dedicated servant to the juveniles that we serve. And it is evident in everything that he did and everybody he worked with. So we were really, really fortunate to have him. And I know I was fortunate to have him for the short period of time to assist me with getting to know Dallas County. So for that, I say so very much. Thank you very much.
Well,
But one of the good things is that Randy's going to continue working with us as we roll out the juvenile case management system across the state. Randy has that expertise that is really unique, and Dallas County is going to be the first one implemented. And Randy, we just appreciate all your hard work, dedication, especially to the kids in Dallas County. We just thank you for all that you've done. And I know you and your wife worked all the way back to Target Kids in Court, putting together presentations and all that kind of stuff. So we thank you too, because you kind of brought it home and let her participate. So we appreciate that. So thank you.
well, Randy, I hope you're able to meet those deliverables in those dates. We talked about that last night in the juvenile board, and as vice chair of the juvenile board for all these many years. I've watched you. Let me just tell you, that whole CUC, this whole migration, and whether or not we're able to take this data and do this, it's on you.
I understand.
Okay?
We'll have it in there, Commissioner, to be something that each of us can be proud of, and I think Dallas County can be proud of. We don't want some of the mistakes that we've seen with other applications.
Well, we spent a lot of time down in Austin, JCMS, and we looked at all of the potential rollout, and everybody's looking at Dallas County. Commissioner Cantrell has championed this whole tech shift, which has been a real benefit to the taxpayers of Dallas County and this state. And they're kind of watching. So last night when I got that report, I told Dr. Smith, and I guess you report to Charles now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. March 31st. Migration Day.
We'll be there before March 31st.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
We'll now consider our consent agenda. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Second.
All those in favor? Yes.
First, if I may.
Yeah, sir.
I have a comment on H, which is the approval or filing of the public official's bond or oath of office. This is the first step in getting bond for Tony Pippett's Pool, who is going to be our elections administrator, and that will be the elections administrator for this upcoming mayoral election in May. Show me as voting no on that. I feel the public has clearly shown a lack of confidence in this individual, and therefore I cannot vote for it.
Just a couple questions. The Election Commission has appointed her as interim director, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so she's going to serve in that position until a decision is made on a permanent
That's correct, and we posted the position both to a national website yesterday, and as well as all postings that are proper in the county.
But on this item, H is strictly ministerial. In other words, if she's serving in that position, we want her to have a bond in case something does take place.
That's right. It protects the county from liability. I don't know if it's required by law, but it'd be the first time anybody's ever done without it.
Judge, it is
It
required
is
by
required by
law.
law.
And Judge, I only bring that up because the public has indicated they don't have confidence in her presiding over even this mayoral election. Is there a possibility that we could find someone qualified to preside before the
We
mayoral?
have found someone qualified to preside, but that's Tony Pippett's Pool.
Well, what I'm saying is the public is showing they did not have confidence in her.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments. Any comments from anybody else? I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda? Aye. And we'll show Commissioner Dickey as nay on
H.
next is bids and RFPs.
Move to approve. And got to it?
But both of those need to be pulled.
Oh, okay. Okay, we'll pull those.
Yeah.
We will now consider corridors 11 through 25 and A1 and A3. A2 will be discussed in closed session.
Okay, I'll move the corridors 11 through 25, adding A1 and A3.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll now recess to our briefing session for items being considered in subsequent session. Mr. Martin?
Morning, Judge Commissioners. Item number 1 on your briefing agenda, Health and Human Services. 1A, recommend approval of the Board of Reallocated Fiscal Year 2011 Ryan Modernization Act Part B Formula Grant Fund. The service provides listed in the package A in the briefing. Item 1B, recommend approval of the fiscal year 2011 State Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS contract fund to Your Health Clinic and Dallas County Health and Human Services. Item 2, Homeland Security and Emergency Management, request approval to expend the remaining Urban Homeland Security Initiative grant funds for specific items to enhance the Dallas County Emergency Operations Center. Item 3, purchasing, recommends approval of the release of an RFP for the fabrication and design of a commercial institutional grade automated food tray seal and packaging machine. Item 4, public works. 4A,
Excuse me 1 second, Mr. Martin. I guess on those UASI funds, I guess I need to ask Commissioner Cantrell. It just says that we're going to talk about going to disaster recovery. Is that part of our recovery?
We'll bring that brief forward also on the disaster recovery. I'm going to meet
In fact, that's next round. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Correct. I'm going to meet with Commissioner Cantrell. We'll bring that item forward for briefing.
Okay.
Item 4A, that quote was on your formal agenda, and I believe you've been briefed, Commissioner Garcia, on that.
Yes, and I just wanted to say, colleagues, if Judge, if you allow me, I'm very proud about this item. It's a project, Hunter Federal Road has been in the books since 1990s. And during, the campaign, it came out as a project that really Grand Prairie and Irving have been working for many years. And I do have to say, I'm very proud to recognize some of the people that made this possible. And I hope that you allow me to read a few names, Judge. Obviously, the mayors of Irving, Mayor Gears, and Grand Prairie, Mayor England, their public works directors, Jim O'Connor, Jim Sparks. I want to also thank Michael Morris with NCT's Todd, and Ramiro Lopez with Public Works of the City of Irving. And of course, I couldn't move this item without the fantastic help of our county Public Works Director, Ms. Alberta Blair, John Mayers, Lloyd Dinman, the project managers, and all their fantastic staff. It would take me at least another 2 minutes to recognize them all, but I just want them and everyone to know that I appreciate immensely their help. When you have a project for more than 10 years on books, and it hasn't happened because people cannot come together. And now we have done that. I'm very pleased, and I'm definitely colleagues. I hope that you can support and move this item forward, in the next agenda.
Judge, Dr. Garcia, was that an orphan run project?
Yes, it's one of the few ones that are left in District 4, and we're definitely happy to see them.
I thought it was the last of your orphan.
Oh, no, we still have another one.
I thought they were all gone.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was just told, I just remembered this thing that there were no orphan road projects in District 4.
Oh, no, we still have some.
That was scary.
Working on that.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Item 4B, that quote was on your formal agenda. 4C, recommends approval of the consultant engineering IDIQ contract with subsurface utility engineering services with Roy Brown and Associates and Lena T. Ramey and Associates. Item 5, tax assessor collector, recommends approval of contract with Robbie D. Young Insurance Agency, authorizing the agency to become a vehicle registration subcontractor. Item 6, county judge, county administration. County administrator recommends approval of the hiring of a community and foundation liaison and refer the request to HR Civil Service for proper classification and final approval from the Civil Service Commission. Item 7, budget. 7A, your conference travel training requests. 7B, your hiring fees exceptions in the district attorney, county clerk, county judge, county criminal court number 3, 68 civil district court, IT, and district court administration. Item 7C, I'm going to take a moment. We'll come back to that briefly, Ryan. We have one travel bring up from HHS. We have 3 employees going to Austin for the STD leadership meeting. $3,000 needed for that. Now will be covered out of grant funds. Have travel from 3.8 to 3.10. And this time we'll go back to 7C, which is performance budgeting, and our budget director, Ryan Brown, will follow.
Good morning. The Commissioners Court over the last couple of weeks, various times, has expressed an interest in tying in the existing performance reports that we have, enhancing those reports, and then trying to figure out how to utilize those in the budgeting or resource allocation process. So what I've drafted out and sent out to you on Friday, and then there's a copy on your dials, just kind of a description of performance-based budgeting as it would work in Dallas County. More importantly than probably just the definitions and the narrative is the relation to the work plan or kind of the process to work forward on. So I wanted to take a moment to kind of walk that through. The way we would tackle this particular topic is that starting this afternoon and tomorrow, the budget office would start submitting the existing performance reports as they exist back up to the departments and request that they provide an input on those, review what's being already collected, make sure it's the proper thing that's collected, make sure that they agree with the targets, add anything that they feel is appropriate to be changed or modified on that, so that we can actually start gathering what I would say an updated or correct information for our existing performance measures. Some of you have been around long enough to remember that we originally started this in the early 2000s, kind of used it for a while, and then kind of let it languish quite literally, where departments were still providing information. Some chose not to provide information, but it wasn't being utilized for managerial purposes or for the resource allocation and budgeting. So once we get that process moving forward, we then would start doing Tuesday afternoon meetings. Will allow us to have a little bit more of an informal discussion, will allow us to tackle the topics and the issues with a much more in-depth dialogue. I would propose that we would start March 8th with a review of the revenues, basically. Go down each and every revenue line item that Dallas County has, show you a 10-year history of what that revenue has done, show you or talk about any chances to enhance that revenue, where that revenue comes from. Is that statutorily? What is the statute? Is it done as a cost recovery? Are we receiving cost recovery? Is it done by Commissioner Court and set it at whatever fee they want? Those type of things. And go piece by piece on that.
Mandate versus non-mandate was a part.
We'll dive into that a little bit on the 8th, but I actually propose that we spend all of the 22nd on that piece of it, where we would take and look at what's mandated and non-mandated. We did that before, but I propose that we're going to do a much deeper and more in-depth dialogue. Hopefully from that, I'll then get some direction for those programs that are non-mandated or that are quote-unquote revenue neutral, to go back and review it to ensure that it's revenue neutral, and to bring back a proposal of it's a non-mandated function, what's it costing, and then make a determination if it's continued funding.
Well, Judge, someone's been around, like I said, long enough to remember this before. I think what happens with departments is that they don't really know what is basically still really mandated versus non-mandated. And I'll give you, for instance, yesterday when in a meeting, and Dr. Garcia heard me kind of loud and clear, that department's primary objective is a jail. Traffic, everything else is basically ancillary and is not required. Now, I don't know, oftentimes, if departments, whether they be elected or appointed officials, understand that. So budget is going to have to generate that. And I think that really needs to be our baseline. And then we back into it. And again, having gone down this road before, and of course, Commissioner Cantrell, I guess, framed it as a new look. So it's just another version of the new look.
It is another version of the new look, but we really do hope to gather and incorporate performance measures a little bit better into what we're doing. Do I envision that we're going to have the great performance measures as we discuss things in April? Probably not. But at least we can get departments looking forward to saying, when I'm called forward on a Tuesday afternoon, either this year or next year, I need to have in place what I want the commissioners to see. And that's not what's currently in place. So I think that this will have a very productive activity for the departments and the budget office and for everybody to see what we have and what we can gather. And it will be utilized for some of this budgeting process, but a lot of this budgeting process will actually go back into that mandated, non-mandated. You may have a non-mandated function that is highly efficient, but it just can no longer be funded or continued because of a financial constraint.
Well, who are you anticipating to be at the March 8th meeting?
I envision that the Commissioners Court, Virginia, myself, Joe's welcome to participate if he wants to. Will be there for sure. I envision that lots of departments will start showing up to this because they're going to recognize real quickly this is where information is being conveyed and figure out what to do with that information.
Personally,
By the time the 22nd comes, I envision all the departments will want to be here to hear the non-mandated, mandated discussion. And then after that, we will be inviting departments specifically, but I imagine that the majority of the departments again will continue to attend if they'll want to see them.
well, you know, we focused a lot on expenditures and cuts. We've never really focused, I think we had one good briefing on revenue. I'm not sure that all department heads and elected officials across the county understand our total revenue picture on where it comes from and how it gets there and how it's used. I'd like to see everybody invited to the revenue and put as much emphasis on the revenue this year as expenses, because when it really comes down to it, just simplifying everything, you're either going to cut 400 to 600 positions this year, or you're going to cut pay 10 to 15%. It's pretty simple. I mean, that's as simple as you get. So why not let everyone see what our historical trends on revenue have been, and then make some suggestions. We'll have to focus on the revenue side of it, see if we can pump that up and maybe get that pay cut down from 10 to 15% down a little bit lower, or maybe take 600 people down to 400 people or 200 people. So, you know, we ought to be focusing on the revenue side and then get to the expense side, because we all know where we're going to end up at some point. So.
And clearly we'll have a broad-based revenue discussion on the 8th, which with the direction of where those chances are to improve our revenue picture.
Okay.
And then as we bring in the departments, one of the dialogues that I'll be having with the departments beforehand is to talk about what other revenue opportunities they have that they can be looking for.
Okay, so the 8th is going to be for us to sort of lay out and build a framework for what we're going to be presenting.
I hope that the 8th and the 22nd really are where we lay out the framework of where we go from here. And both of those, you know, the revenue and the mandated, non-mandated will be very important because two of the commissioners have never seen that information before. The other three of you have seen it, but I plan on bringing a much more in-depth viewpoint of it than I did the last time.
Well, and you keep talking about, you know, revenue. I mean, we know pretty much what those revenue streams are, and they haven't changed.
Well, let me ask, because over the past 10 years, I think revenues on fines and fees, it's gone down.
Gone down.
It's gone down. So I don't know if you have the staff to be able to break that down by court.
That data actually exists.
Okay.
It's just never been used in the manner that which you're talking about.
Well, I think
so the data's easy. That's there, and I think
I think we'll get into that.
Important to bring forth together.
Because when we start cutting court staff, they don't understand.
Well, but I also want to talk about. Go ahead. I want to talk about assets as well, because you know we talk a lot about revenue, what's Dallas County assets? And Mr. Ames and I had this conversation. And he's on the Dallas Central Appraisal District Board as well. What's our assets? And are there opportunities for us to be outside the box in terms of funding assets 20 years out, et cetera, or selling? There's some creativity. So we need to really know what our assets are. I don't think, again, most members of the court know what the assets are around here. We know where our revenue streams are and, again, how we've been impacted. What are our assets and what do we...
Once again, the facilities department does an annual book of all the facilities and buildings that we own. I would then need to incorporate things from Public Works as it relates to right-of-way that we no longer have usage or need for, and have a dialogue related to that.
Absolutely. Right. So that should be a part of it, that's all.
Definitely will be a Tuesday afternoon, we'll have that dialogue.
Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you, Judge. Well, I'm really looking forward to this performance-based budgeting. I found very interested in your memo to the court, Mr. Brown, that you say that the Office of Budget and Evaluation, with the cooperation of all elected officials, have been producing performance measures reports for many years. You know, currently there are 3 volumes, and I'm reading the memo of reports being produced. However, these reports have not been used to determine, you know, the funding of departments and programs. And I think that's pretty much what we are discussing today. I think it will be very informational for me as a new commissioner, and of course to the public, to know exactly how these performances have been during the years, which produce revenue and which one lose revenue. And more importantly, I think that will give us the trends of the last 3 or 4 years, and that's what performance-based budgeting is all about. How are we doing, what makes the line, and what you have to cut. And I think as an elected official, you know, I will feel better knowing, you know, which departments, you know, can cut more and which departments can cut less. Because I believe that across the board, cutting, you know, is definitely not the way to do it.
May I have an opportunity to talk?
I'm sorry, Ms.
Can I just finish? Thank you. And so I'm excited. I think that Commissioner Cantrell and Commissioner Price bring 2 very important points to the table, especially when it comes to assets that we have. I got the book of all the buildings that we have and which ones we lease. Hey, we may have some opportunities to make some buy, lease, you know, contracts with different entities and make additional money, which is exactly what we're going to be looking into. So I look forward to it, Josh. I commend you for moving this forward, and I look forward to working with my colleagues, all elected officials and staff during this difficult budget process. Thank you.
Commissioner Dickey.
Thank you, sir. I certainly agree with what Commissioner Cantrell has said. We do need to look at our revenue and see how we can enhance that revenue and whether our departments are functioning in a smart way before we start the cuts. And I think that it will be good for the new commissioners and for the employees of Dallas County when we have to make cuts to understand what our revenue is. And I think that's a very smart idea to start with. In the past, we've just made across-the-board cuts that really were relatively meaningless because they didn't look at priorities, they didn't look at department by department. And so I think this is a smart way to start, and if a good thing has come out of our shortfall, it is that we're looking at the budget in a smarter manner than we have before, and more comprehensive manner. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Jeff, I want to caution us, and especially since RaquelGarcia.com gets us out to the public. Ms. Porter, the auditor, who works primarily pointed out the district judges, we keep using words like revenue. We, as a county, are not allowed to do basically anything that moves us beyond just charging for those services. In other words, in Virginia, is that not correct? Is that the law?
Generally, the counties are not to make a profit. We have reasonable cost of collection, so we want to recognize all possible costs to bring those in.
Right.
There are also fees that are established in statutes. We want to make sure that in all cases we are charging for this.
Right.
I think receivables, court receivables, may be an area that you want to look at because there is a collection activity associated with bringing that revenue.
But we keep using the word like revenue as though we're generating revenue as a result of having dealt with the public, and that is not the case. Those are fees that are set by law.
Cost recovery.
Cost recovery.
Not talking about profits.
Well, I understand, but we use that word very loosely, and I just want to make sure that that's very clear from there.
That's a good point, if I may say. In the private sector, we call it revenue. In the public sector, we call it cost recovery. So.
This will allow us, this is the second step in an effort to make government more accountable. The first step was last week to ensure that we have performance reviews yearly for every department head. And this is the second step. And so, not to pick on anyone, actually to praise someone, Gary Fitzsimmons has done a phenomenal job with our passport office. If anybody out there needs a passport, you wait about a month, I think, at the post office, but there's no line at our district clerk's office. And I think that's a great program and one that we believe is revenue neutral. But we haven't really looked at actually makes a profit, but we haven't looked at what's the cost of the building? What's the cost of heating the building? Really look at those costs in a more effective, more detailed way, get more information. Nobody wants to cut services for children, but in each specific service for children, Ryan used the example, I don't know if this is a true example or just an example as we were talking, but what if we had an adoption unit that only adopted 3 kids out last year but cost $400,000? That might be something we could take to the private sector more effectively. So I really appreciate people embracing this because it is a lot more work. I expect that on these Tuesdays afternoons, we're going to spend 5 hours every Tuesday afternoon. It's a lot more work, but it's a lot more information, and with more information, we'll make better decisions and better choices. So I really appreciate everybody's work up here and down there on this. So thank you very much. Oh, while I've got the floor, let me say I've got a new appointee in the audience, so let me recognize him. Trey Black is here, and I have appointed Trey Black to the Workforce Solutions Board, and we're really excited about getting that board even more powerful than it has been and creating those good jobs. So thanks for coming today, Trey.
Before you move on, we have one other informational item. Dr. Noyes is here from the Community Corrections Department. Wants to talk about some of the state budget cuts and how we will impact Dallas County. In addition, Ron Strepter also will be piggybacking on some of those cuts and how it's also impacting Dallas.
Oh, and before we do that, of course, one other thing that I want to thank people for. I reached out to the District Attorney's Office and the Sheriff's Department already. I'm going to reach out to Gary Fitzsimmons and others as well. And at least those 2 departments. And I think many of our others are going to embrace this performance-based budgeting. And we're going to see that spanning out, not just with our 10 departments that we oversee, but spanning out across our county government so that we can make some really good informed choices. So I want to thank them also for embracing that because there's a lot of work to that. And it's not an easy thing to do, and I really appreciate it.
Morning, Judge, Commissioners. Thank you very much for allowing me time. As we talk about budgets, I know you all recognize that the Commissioners Court does not fund directly the Dallas County CSCD. It's a offender page system, it's a state page system, it's a federal-based system, but we have a very strong relationship as far as shared resources. The largest impact that the CSCD has on the adult probation, on the county as a whole, is on jail population. And I'm going to outline and discuss, we're going to frame for the Commissioners Court briefly just exactly what the CSCDs are, how they contribute to community corrections and public safety in this county, and then bring it back down exactly to our jail population, exactly where that stands. We could reference the first document that I gave you with the arrows going up and going down. 82nd legislative session. This is a document that has been generated by our office just as talking points that we've used for our legislators this entire session. What's most important here to understand is that if we look at the cost of offender for community supervision, it costs no more than almost $3 a day for us to provide services to our offender population. Of that offender population, I want to outline that we have over 55,000 clients that we provide services for. And to make that even an outline and drive that point even further home is that's the equivalent to almost 8 of our county jails. 8 of our county jails that we supervise on a daily basis throughout this community. Not all of them are high risk. Most of them are medium to lower risk clients from that aspect, but they're you, they're I, they're a community as a whole, and they fall within our responsibility. If we look at the other arrow going up, you can see that when we incarcerate somebody in the state system, $50.79 a day. Okay? There's a whole host of people that deserve to be in prison, and I have no problem recommending to my court that those individuals go to prison. But of those 55,000 people that we serve, most of those people can be supervised in this community safely and are being supervised in this community safely. We look down at the second chart that I provided here with the solid arrows and the dotted lines. I want to focus on the dotted lines to start with. The Legislative Budget Board provides the data and the information to our legislatures on trend and dollars and fiscal notes. Believe that between 2005 and 2010, that our prison population was going to go up. At the same time, they projected that community supervision populations, placement on probation, were going to go down. If you look at the solid lines, you see the inverse occur. Prison populations bottomed out, okay, and community supervision referrals exceeded expectations. The reasons for that were twofold. One, we were provided the resources that we were needed, fiscal resources that we were needed to do our job from that aspect and do it better. And the second part of that is our courts our criminal courts began to recognize the value of those services that were provided and were referring more people to community supervision rather than to prison from that aspect.
But Dr. Norris, that was deliberate.
Oh, indeed.
That was deliberate and was incentivized.
Oh, very much so. And they did so, and they did it by legislation and provided in that fashion. But the LBB still projected, even with those incentives, that prison populations were going to go up, and that CSCD referrals were not going to be as high as they were. So what's happened here is that our system has been inverted because of those incentives from that aspect, and that we are now a community-based supervision criminal justice system in the state and not a prison-based system. Again, that doesn't mean public safety is at jeopardy here. It's just that we're using those resources more efficiently and for those people who truly need it. What were those incentives that Commissioner Price just outlined? If we could flip the page over to the other side.
Dr. Norris, what year was it that the legislature passed state jail felons?
Oh, that was prior to my time, sir. I'm 1990s. Yes, sir. All right, the first chart shows that community supervision prison population. If we look at prison populations, about 153,950 people. Community supervision is about 406,000 across the state. If we look at the pie chart to the right, you'll see that the funding for community supervision is only 10%, even though that we supervise more than the state prison system does, whereas the state prison system is 90% from there. What has changed? We look at strengthening and weakening supervisions. The 2005 model versus 2010. Prior to those incentives, we had fewer alternatives to incarcerations for sentencing. We had higher caseload size. We had a high number of nonviolent offenders receiving direct sentences to prison. Lower probation placements. Probation revocations accounted for 40% of prison admissions. And these revocations weren't just for new crimes. They were what we call technical violations, which were not showing up on time, a couple dirty UAs, didn't finish their GED, didn't go to a community super. These were people, low, medium response, that went to prison as a result. The LBB projected a need for an additional 17,000 prison beds by 2010. Okay, that was the increase we spoke of. With the incentives that Commissioner Price outlined from that aspect, the legislative sessions in 207, 209, outline the strengthening components for community supervision. They provided us with those dollars, those resources, those incentives for more alternatives to incarceration for sentencing. Caseload sizes were reduced. Key here. Key. Because we can't supervise high-risk clients at high-risk caseloads. They're going to slip through the cracks, unfortunately, with the resources we have. They're going to commit offenses, and they're going to be a public safety threat to us, to this community. Lower numbers of non-violent offenders receiving direct sentences to prison. Higher probation placement. Prison admissions due to technical violations down by 5,912 offenders, and over 16,000 more offenders diverted from prison to community supervision programs in 2005. That's the exact same number that they thought they would need in prison beds. I want to highlight the information by going back to the first page. The bullet point under fact is that because of all these changes, all of these things that were provided by the legislature, community supervision, Community Corrections Department has saved $252 million a year since 2005 because of community supervision, okay, and not having to build prisons. This state wants to be out of the prison building business, so they say. Brings me to our budget. Okay. We look at the, there's two sheets, they're very similar as you look at. One of them outlines our, what HB1 is, which is the introduced appropriations bill from the House. The other is Senate bill, as introduced to the Senate. Okay, we recognize that this is not the appropriations bill, and we understand that this is the basement, but it's a scary basement. It's an extremely scary basement, and I wanted to highlight where this brings us here. The state is looking, the House budget is looking at a cut of almost 23% of the CSCD budget. And the Senate budget is looking at approximately 13% cut. What that will do is that the key to the services that we provide, besides the supervision of our clients, which we do a very good job with, is our assessment. We have a division within our within the CSCD, the Community Supervision and Corrections Department, known as our Comprehensive Treatment and Services Unit. That unit provides for comprehensive assessments, both for risk, needs, treatment, for every single felon that comes through the criminal court, and those misdemeanors, because we recognize, too, that some of those felons' cases were pled down to misdemeanors, but there's a need for an assessment. Also recognize that close to 98% of all cases that go through the criminal justice system are plea bargains. Our assessments, what our CATS unit does, is provide for clinical assessments on all those clients, whether they're high risk, medium risk, moderate risk, low risk, and what level of service is necessary for those individuals to succeed on community supervision. By success, I mean supervision, too. They need to be supervised, but at the same time, research showed clearly the clear relationship between treatment and successful supervision. Under the House bill, if it moves forward without amendments, we lose 90% of those dollars that we use for our assessment. 90%. Okay? We estimate that with that 90% loss, we will stand to about, there'll be about 6,000 medium to high risk clients that we can't assess. If we can't assess those clients, then we're going to be placing them on supervision without a crystal ball, without anything from that aspect, in hopes, in a prayer, in a wish that they don't repeat offend or they don't technically revoke. Okay? That's the public safety piece. The financial piece for that aspect of it, they're going to go back to jail, our jail. They'll be sitting there for revocations for new offenses. We average 7,000 to 8,000 new placements on probation a year. Okay? If our system resources are diminished to that capacity, we're looking at almost a full Dallas County jail, another one, with just our clients as a result, because they can't be assessed. Now, you may not see that today, you may not see that tomorrow, but we will see it. And then finally showing from that, what occurs here is that for the dollars that the state believes they're going to save up front by making those cuts, they'll lose that in prison costs from Dallas County in a couple months, 3 months from that aspect. Because our clients, once they won't stay in the state jail, in our jail, they'll sometime move to the prison system as a result. But what will occur is that as they move our clients into the prison system, they're quickly going to realize they don't have enough room. Okay? They don't have a budget for additional bed space to purchase, and they don't have any more prison space. Well, I take that back. They have the central unit that they have on the table that they're looking at ramping down. But nonetheless, they look at returning us back pre-2005 as a result. What I wanted to do today was not cry and whine from that aspect, was bring to the attention of this Commissioner's Court just exactly what the impact is going to look like. The Senate bill was a little nicer, not real nice, but it was a little nicer as it moves forward. We're working daily with our senators, with the appropriations, with each of the committees, Corrections Committee, all of which to try to move off of this baseline budget that they introduced fully to the House and the Senate, and look at restoring funding back to what it has been in 2011 and 2010. We're not asking for any more money. We're asking that we be able to maintain with those dollars that we have. And that's the impact.
Judge, and again, I wouldn't have those individuals on Dr. Elbert Garcia.com, and I think that this has caught us by surprise. We've been working on this for quite some time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, we've also done somewhat, along with budget and contingency planning, at least as far as maybe the CATS portion of the budget is concerned. The difference between SB1 and HB1, the 10%, again, is considerable, and as you said, there are no dollars for capital in regards to the state, much less operational. And what you didn't put in your presentation there is that right now, the state is using county jails anyway with regards to how they manage that population. Post-adjudication. What we are concerned about, at this level, is not only what it'll do to you, but from the post-adjudication side, given the agreement that counties and the state came to several years ago with the 45-day post-adjudication custody, is what that will do to us. And I think, Ryan, you in your calculations gave us, $6.3 million for 14 days?
Yeah, very quickly, it was just 2 weeks. About 14 days came out a little over.
Right. And so there are a number of things that are in the air. Of course, we've tried to talk, as you know, with certain legislators. We've seen, even in the middle of all of this, what you've had to do to adjust just to try to maintain your compensation. I guess what I'm asking for purposes of this court, what is it that you want this court to do that we have not already so much proactively been doing? But what is it? We know where Senator Whitmire is. We know where, he's driving on the Senate side.
President through the CDC also.
Okay.
You're intact. Everybody's full-blown killed.
Okay. So what with your presentation today, what is it that you're asking this court to do that we haven't?
If the court so pleases, it would be most helpful if we had a 5-signature letter to address those individuals writing our budget, our governor, our lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House, just so that they can understand just exactly the impact that it's going to have, not just on the statewide system, but a lot of discussion on unfunded mandates. And I think there's been a huge discussion on this court and across Texas as a whole as to unfunded mandates. I can't see a larger one than this as a result of our budget being impacted with that. Now, I fully anticipate cuts, and I'm willing to stand there with everybody understanding that, but these cuts that they proposed will crush our system. And I don't mean the CSCD, I mean the county system that we have, the criminal justice system that we've worked so hard over the last couple of years to be able to put together and really streamline and efficiently process justice here. It'll knock us back to the Stone Ages. It really will.
You want to draft that letter for us?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir. It'll be here by Friday at the latest.
I'd like to run that past Craig Pardue too.
After Commissioner.
No, no, go
No, go ahead.
No, I'm not.
And after you.
No, go ahead.
I'm doing a bad job of seeing everybody today. I'm leaning back with my leg up, so I apologize to everybody. Go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner Cantrell. Dr. Noyes, I really, thank you for being here and giving us this information. As a new commissioner, I have worked on the crime side with the Dallas Police Department for many years, and I do have to say that this information and the fact that we're facing, people getting out of jail with absolutely no supervision, it's a scary feeling and a scary thought for all the advances that we have done as a municipality and county. I will definitely support the letter and will help in any way I can. As the chair of CEJA, and I'm very honored that you're the chair, probably we can do this countywide, probably ask the letters of support from different municipalities. Do you think that someone is something that we can do?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I think it would help understand just the impact that it's going to have on Dallas County. The more information that our budget writers and decision makers have to make good, solid decisions is the best for all of us as a whole.
Well, I would love to see this information on our next CJAB agenda, and then have that letter that this commission is going to sign ready to distribute to all the different municipalities in Dallas County. I think this is something that we really need to make our legislators aware of what this will do into not only Dallas County but the whole state.
Yes, ma'am.
You can count on my support.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No. Realistically, looking at the state budget, you're going to have the 10 to 13%, just like the Senate bill. That's being realistic. And I hope that Commissioner Price, in handling the jail, that we look at, back in 1986, 87, when we were in the same position as what the state's doing right now, we were also generating revenue off of that. The states, and I don't know the fact that
Once the state reaches the 45 days, then we have to start charging them a rate that is set by
it's a court.
And yes, you can make revenue off of that, but the problem is the delta of about $6 million in order to put it into 45 days.
Right.
That's really rough.
I guess what I'm saying is we need to plan for that, and we also need to plan for, as we look at Decker and the old jail and things like that. It may, to offset some of those things, the state's going to need places to put these individuals. And once we get past that delta, which is a cost, we need to look at it on the revenue side too.
I think what they're going to do though, and we looked at all that again. As we did in the 80s, we did a contingency plan. I think that was one of the same years that they cut the judges, and the court bought in and supplemented it, and we saw that benefit in terms of jail management. And Dr. Norton, you and your staff, you've done a yeoman's job. They are considered to be premier throughout the state. Dallas County is. Recently, as I said, we had to do some juggling with regards to appropriations. And by the way, while you talk about 13%, they're already taking 2.5% already.
Yes, sir. We had thankful to some austerity measures we took early on, we were able to recover some of those costs. We didn't fill vacancies. We haven't filled vacancies from that end of it, and our officers have been doing with what they had. That was, believe it or not, the easy part. The tough part is going to be 12 and 13 if the bills move forward in the way they're defined right now. And as Commissioner Cantrell had said, we anticipate a cut. We have contingencies. We can get better, and we will, and we'll be forced to get better as a result. But nonetheless, I'd like to see it closer to that 12% than it is at the 90% from the top standpoint, because we would not be able to recover from that. We've invested.
What we're all pushing at the state level. The governor has set up a committee for unfunded mandates. We do have a surrounding county judge and also a board of county judges. So, this is going to be one of the things that's going to be on that, because every county is going to experience that delta. So, we're on top of it. I just don't, they're going to face the same thing we're facing as we bring our departments in and say we just can't cut it.
I think that this delta of 14 days, which is going to cost the county over $16 million for that 14-day period, that's what we project, means that those individuals, those inmates, are sitting in the jail away from their families and also away from their jobs. So they may lose their employment if they have it, and it's really and they're not receiving any treatment during that time that they're in jail. So it's really just downtime that's worthless. I think this is a wonderful presentation, Dr. Norris, and it certainly, I realized it, but I'm glad you put figures with it. I would like to ask Darrell and future presenters, since we do have such an increased interest in the Commissioner's Court and in our county budget, if we could put this lovely presentation, if we could do it on PowerPoint so that the public could follow what we're doing. It's really hard to follow numbers when you don't have a piece of paper in front of you. So if we could do that more so that the public could be accommodated.
Yes, ma'am.
One suggestion, when you give us the 5-signature letter, you might incorporate some of these PowerPoint type slides, these graphics that you have in the letter, make it more interesting for who's going to get that.
Yes, sir, indeed.
I'm assuming that you're already testifying in front of the key Senate and House committees, and if not, why not? And also have your compadres across the state put together similar.
Our compadres have, sir. In fact, they're using that and they're plugging their own numbers in as a result. I've testified many times, and when I can't be there, my assistant director, Dr. Williams, is there. In fact, she's there now. And we tag team back and forth, sometimes together, sometimes not, but we've got it covered. And even when there aren't committee meetings, we're in the chambers and we're pushing past staffers and we're talking to our legislators because it's that important. And everybody's telling us they recognize it, but when it comes down to, the budget itself, we're going to find out. But I do know that if we're not in front of them, somebody else is going to be in front of them. And we need to highlight just exactly what this impact is going to be to CSCDs in this county as a whole.
I appreciate you not saying probably what you want to say, but look, you know from the years of testimony and experience, when you get past one page, you lose them, correct? Isn't that what we do in all our committee meetings? I appreciate you talking about attaching all of this. When you get past one page, you lose them. So all I'm saying to you is when you generate, try to generate as much as you can, incorporate it into that one page.
Yes, sir.
You know what happens. You didn't say anything, but the mantra is if you get past one page with everything else they got going.
And that's why I want Craig to look at it, because we can, in there, when you talk about that delta, 6.3, 6.3, so that's basically a half cent on our
Tax rate.
So that's what we need included in the letter, so that our Dallas County delegation understands that's a half cent property taxes increase in order to take care of that delta, or cutting services that.
Do humor me if that's those on the back, because there are people like me that will read your graphs. And there are people in Austin like me who will read your graphs and will be interested in that. And when we're looking at hundreds of letters all essentially saying the same thing, it kind of glosses over for us.
We will indeed attach it, and we shove it under their doors. They've seen it a lot of times. We're going to continue to do so. So I'm surprised that we haven't been asked politely to leave.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Judge, Commissioner Brown, special.
Very quick, and what I'm asking is that we can make a focus of Friday's legislative deals and talk about this in more detail. Kind of where we're at, that Dr. Noyes has said, we're facing the same tsunami with our mental health funding. Our North Star system, that's Dallas and 6 other counties. We're very much integrated with substance abuse, mental health in the jail. Many of the defendants that Dr. Noyes talks about receive these services. We've already seen the beginning of the impact. In the last 2 years, from 2008 to 10, we added 14,000 people in the North Star service with no more money. So, we've already started compressing it down. We've already started to see the increase in people in the jail waiting to go to the state hospital and treatment programs, serious residential treatment programs. We're already seeing that increase. And so we've worked with Dr. Williams and the consultants that we've had in from Parkland on the BHLT to run the numbers. And we're very confident that this $15 million loss in North Star money will lead to $12 million in cost in 12 for us in the jail with people backed up, plus another 12 to the state because it drives more people to prison. We've really tried to hit that in our advocacy efforts, but we're hearing a lot of, oh, we see you're right, oh, I know you're right, but I don't know what we can do. And that goes to that issue. We well understand cuts. North Star has embraced that, and we've gotten our efficiencies about as efficient as there can be. We're just needing some help how to frame this message, because if this comes true, that's going to be catastrophic to us. Because that's really kind of on top of what Dr. Noyes is talking about here. So that's what I would ask. I'll have some figures I'll get out today, and that we can maybe spend a little time. We need a little guidance on how to best move forward. All our advocacy efforts are in place. We had a legislative breakfast last week. We're hitting everybody, but like I said, the message is we hear you, but nothing we can do.
I'll recognize Commissioner Cantrell, President of the Conference of Urban Counties.
Well, Ron, one thing that you can help us frame along with Ryan is, they've said for many years the $4+ million that we put into the North Star program. There's been times that we've talked about taking that out, and they've always said that North Star would fold. Now they're coming in and taking away $15 million. Well, isn't it amazing? I guess if it's your money, then it's going to fold, but if it's our money, it's still going to run perfectly. What they're anticipating that we'll do is pick up the slack. So we need to start talking about if they're going to take out the $15 million, maybe we need to take out the $4 million, especially with our budget. And then let's see how they frame it then, because the system cannot sustain itself. If you take out the $15 million and the $4 million, and then it's going to cost a whole lot more to put us into a model like everybody else is in the state. We're the only one in the North Star program across the state.
We're the only one doing this managed care, and that's a whole other argument and a lot of consternation around the state. But you take all that out of it, at the end of the day, we can show how many people we're serving with the money. And we've absorbed cuts for years, but you can really show these last two, 14,000 people, no more money. We drove our cost per person way down. There's nowhere else to go. And they're talking an indigent benefit deal, so that if you don't have Medicaid, all we may be able to give you is a dot ever so often in your medications. Well, already you look at what drives the Psych ER and the Green Oaks and even the jail, it's these indigent folks already. So you take any level of service, it's going to drive up the use of these.
Well, when you talk about, as we talk about 23-hour emergency ops, the fact that you can't get to a doctor maybe once a month if you're lucky, the chemical dependency, all those are issues that I don't think most people can even begin to really, understand. Talk about the North Star system, that's really not debatable. And the 7-county area, that is the most efficient system in the state, bar none. And the other parts of the state has fought along how they resisted being in a model of managed care like North Star. And we continue to deliver, but no good deed goes unpunished. And that's happened to us in our hospital district. We talked about it in the legislative briefing the other day. We've got 160 hospital districts. 9 of them continue to be the major contributors in terms of funding in this state. Same thing has happened in terms of North Star. We've seen our dollars go elsewhere. So it's really going to be a challenge, probably more than I've ever seen.
They just give us what Harris County receives in mental health funds. We can balance our budget and get double care. But with regards to the letter that Dr. Noyes is going to do, if you do that type of cut, then you're going to close that delta a lot quicker in our jails. So we need to wrap that in and also show perhaps how that's going to coincide with what they're trying to do on the CSCD side too. Lump it all in together so they understand.
It does tie, because embedded in his data and what I will give you is very conservative estimates of what it's going to cost the state. And our thought is, I think there's some movement at Austin, they just want the numbers to add up and get certified, and they don't really want to hear about the impact. But by telling them, you cut this money, you'll spend it, not us. You'll spend it in your budget the very same year on increased prison costs. So we just need some guidance and help really driving that point.
Thank you.
Number of speakers. Before we get to the speakers, I want to recognize, take a moment of personal privilege. I got 3 family members in the audience. Aunt Barb is here taking over from Mama, who's on vacation, who always sits in. And I've got the world's greatest mother-in-law, Jeannie Williams, back there. And somewhere back behind someone is my lovely and devoted wife, Chrissy. So thank you all for coming. Speakers that we have today, first speaker is Charles Lingerfeld. Mr. Lingerfeld, see you back there. You know the drill. Say your name and address. Have we given them? We want to read out our rules again. I think Mr. This won't count against your time, but he'll read you the rules again to refresh your memory.
All Commissioners Court attendees are hereby advised that this meeting is conducted in accordance with the provisions of the Dallas County Code, Section 74-71. Visitors and registered speakers are to preserve order and decorum at all times. Personal, profane, or slanderous remarks are not appropriate and will not be allowed at any time during this public meeting. Any and all applause is to be kept brief and observance of time constraints. Disruptive visitors and/or registered speakers may be removed and are subject to the penalties provided in the State of Texas Penal Code, Section 38.13, 42.01, and 42.05. Registered individual speakers are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and the maximum discussion on any one topic is limited to 30 minutes.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Lingerfeld.
Charles Lingerfeld, 1608 Bell Meadow Lane, Dallas 75253. As a 12-year-old lad growing up in East Tennessee, I had a newspaper route for the Knoxville News Sentinel. On this paper route, I had about 127 customers. The thing that was unique about this route was that about 110 of those customers were of the African American descent. Each day I would gather my newspapers from the district manager, fold them, and set out on my route to deliver the papers. I knew all my customers by name, and they knew me by name as well. My purpose on this paper route was to deliver their papers to them on time, be friendly along the way, and collect once each week. This was a wonderful opportunity for me because it kept me busy with a small job, gave me a small income each week, helped me to develop friendship skills, and helped me to truly know people who were different than me. It was during this time, the time of racial bombings of the Clinton High School in Tennessee, the racial tensions in Little Rock, Arkansas, and others across America. My customers, however, never treated me different, and I never did so to them. We always treated one another with respect, honor, and love. We were from a small town, and we all knew each other. They invited me to stop by once in a while, have a piece of cake or pie, and a small glass of milk. I always accommodated them. They all knew me as a grandson of a conservative Democrat who owned a business in town. I knew them as customers who always went to church and sang very well in church. I was taught very well in this relationship and by my parents as well to honor and respect adults, older people, and people in general, even if they disagreed with me. For weeks now, we citizens have been appearing here in this court to express our opinions, rightfully so, and as well to honor our God-given rights and those granted to us by the Constitution of the United States. I feel that we have been respectful of this court, trying our best to be heard with as much detail as is possible and legally within the bounds of the law. Some of you have listened well to us, the citizenry, and some I feel have listened very little or not at all. Your Honor, you know we have a voice, sir, don't you? And you know that for us to have the balanced democratic processes that we need here in this county, the voice of the people must be heard. A citizen is not a good citizen if he feels in any way that he or she is being muted. No part of our government was ever founded to squelch the voice of the people. And I believe God has given you a wonderful opportunity here in this court to reflect His love, His grace, and authority. But if you continue to deny the people of their First Amendment rights here in this court, you will not be respected by anyone, and you will not last very long. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Diane Gibson. Ms. Gibson, you only have to state your name and your address before you begin.
Diane Gibson, 2027 Chavella Drive, Dallas, Texas, 75232. But this is a day that the Lord has made, and I shall rejoice and be glad in it. I have served as an election clerk, emergency election judge, and served as past chair of the Citizen Election Advisory Committee for Dallas County Election Department. And I digress. Please allow me this opportunity to paraphrase the poet Maya Angelou, "Still I Rise." In the 24 years they have worked at the Dallas County Election Department, they have conducted over 400 elections, developed the first online election worker training network and course of development. Still I rise. Trained election day workers and community people on ADA touchscreen voting, responsible for balancing and maintaining the department budget and grants. Still I rise. Served as guest speaker and presenter at the Secretary of State of Texas election law seminars, recruited to work with the Federal Voting Assistance Program of the Department of Defense, Federal Election Commission, and the DOJ section on establishing a pilot program for voting over the internet for overseas and military voters in developing standards and implementation. Served on the National Task Force developed and implemented of the Help America Vote Act. Brought over $13 million in grants to Dallas County election. Still I rise. Worked with the Secretary of State in their 2010 Vote Texas campaign in the DFW areas to provide awareness of registration and voting in Texas. Spearheaded the state's telethon on WFAA and Voters Jeopardy at the 2010 State Fair of Texas to encourage voter registration and demonstration on the voting system. Still I rise. Finally, worked with 2011 Southern Sudan Referendum Commission in their election and international election. Still I rise. Please allow me this opportunity to thank God for a true servant leader in the form of Bruce Sherman, who allowed God to use him to equip Tony Pippin Poole for such a time as this. Tony, it's your season for your new assignment. Still she rise. Thank you.
Mr. Richard Sheridan, please.
Yes, good morning. My name is Richard Sheridan. I live at 3022 Forest Lane, Dallas, Texas. And good morning, Judge, and good morning, Commissioners. I appreciate being here. The title of the speech is Republican and Democratic Election Fraud and Voter Suppression. We need independent election oversight. Quote, live free or die bold. They say that perception is reality. I should know I am perceived to be a Democrat by some Republicans and a Republican by some Democrats. To some Republicans, Democrats are bad or evil. And to some Democrats, Republicans are bad or evil. And I think Tea Party's in there as well. I get called names by both sides. Name calling, labeling, and personal attacks are going on all over our nation. We are divided as never before, and it is all prophetic and pathetic. As far as personal attacks are concerned, all political conversation can be considered to be personal attacks, depending on perception, the definition of words, and the thickness of one's skin. One may say he or she is attacked, but that view may be very subjective, even political. To stop necessary information from getting to the people and the media. This court is the people's place, the place where we must be able to speak our truth to power. If we intentionally use a clearly incendiary word, yell fire, please censure us, remove us from this court, fine us, or in extreme cases, put us in jail. I believe the majority opinion of last week's court session saw the speaker censoring as too heavy-handed and alleged violations of our First Amendment right of free speech. Election fraud is a national problem. Why and how have we come to this? It is done because of the now rabid pursuit of power by both parties. This is the basic motivation to seek control of the various governmental bodies with election fraud as one tool. How is election fraud accomplished? An election stolen. There is an excellent report entitled The Long Shadow of Jim Crow, Voter Intimidation and Suppression in America Today, written by People for the American Way and the NAACP. It cites the following activities as part of voter fraud and suppression. 1, challenges and threats against voters at the polls, intimidating signs at the polls. 3, election workers helping quote-unquote voters fill out their ballots. 4, dead people voting and criminal tampering of voter registration. 5, dissemination of false information in various aspects of the election. And lastly, 6, and this is the matter before the court today, discriminatory selection of election officials. A report by the Free Press, Columbus, Ohio, February 25, 2004, made allegations of vote fraud coming from rigged electronic voting machines. Diebold was identified as the major suspect machine. The reports claim that Diebold voting machines are remotely programmable to produce the desired winners. In 2004 Ohio election, one of the states that was key to George Bush's re-election, there were allegations that Bush was re-elected president because of Diebold voting machines. Diebold was a big contributor to Bush's campaign, and its president, Mr. Odell, is considered to be a very close ally of George W. Bush. Maybe that's why someone came up with the expression, live free or die bold. I believe we need, as Maureen Dickey, Commissioner Dickey's calling for, an independent oversight of what's coming up in May. God bless you, and thank you, Judge.
All right, next, Ms. Karen Shear. Karen Shear. Please state your name and address.
Karen Shear, 9654 Bryson Drive, Dallas, Texas, 75238. Judge Jenkins, at the time of the adoption of our Constitution, founders expressed a desire to add further declaratory and restrictive clauses in what is now known as the Bill of Rights in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of the well-defined and limited powers delineated in the Constitution, and in order to extend the public's confidence in government, in our elected officials, and in the courts. The first of those added amendments says that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition for a redress of grievances. I'm here to express my concern regarding the harsh censorship of last week's meeting, which I view as a violation of our constitutional rights, as described in that First Amendment. Judge Jenkins, every man and woman has an undoubted right to lay what sentiments he pleases before the public, as long as it's not improper, mischievous, or illegal. I'm appalled and disgusted by what I heard, viewed, and read about last week's meeting. Shameful behavior, a new code of conduct that was a blatant violation of our constitutional rights. In the spirit of last week's code of conduct, let me express my sentiments this way.
coming down. Next, we have Mr. Ken Emanuelson, please.
Thank you, Judge.
I know you're here frequently, but your address.
Yes, Ken Emanuelson, 5910 North Central Expressway, 75206. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. We see on our television screens every day people around the world who are standing up with speech for the right to speak, the right to speak out against government that they don't agree with, for their God-given ability to express themselves, to assemble, petition their government for redress of grievances. We see this every day on our television screen. Most countries around the world don't have what we have, which is the First Amendment. Thank God we do have it. It doesn't give us our rights, but it does protect them. I have delivered to the members of the Commissioners Court today a button. Each of you has one. It just has, it's very simple. It has a Roman numeral 1 representing the First Amendment. And I invite you to don that button in support of the people around the world that are standing up for their right to speak freely. In some cases, they're being met with bombs, guns, thugs, all manner of resistance by the tyrants that are standing against them. And I today stand with them, all who stand up for their right to free speech. And I invite all the members of the Commissioners Court to join with us, the citizens of Dallas, in standing up for the God-given right for freedom of speech by donning the First Amendment button I've delivered to you all today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And lastly, we have Mr. Jim Lovell.
I'm actually not Jim Lovell, the astronaut. It says that I'm the Reverend Bill Lovell, the Portland Lovell pastor.
I apologize.
That's all right.
It is on my list.
I saw that.
Reverend, please remember to say your address.
Yes, sir. 14527 Meandering Way, Dallas, Texas. I just want to quickly say a few things to the court. I very much appreciate the privilege of being able to speak to you today. And I want to say thank you, first of all, for the rules, the code of conduct that was adopted last week. That was a huge step forward. I wish it had been done a bit earlier, but we have it in place now, and thank you very much for being willing to put that forward. But I would like to ask, secondly, that you reconsider the way you enforced those rules last week. It's been much easier, I think, this week. I think there's maybe a change of tone, a change of leadership about that. But as you've seen, there was a great deal of feeling that we were intruding on people's rights to be able to speak their mind to you, their elected officials. And so we appreciate any effort you can take to allow people to vent, to express their feelings. Thirdly, I want to say congratulations to Tony Pippins-Poole. I am an election judge, or I have been an election judge for my precinct for almost 10 years. I look forward to working with Tony. I don't know her well, but I look forward to getting to know her. I'm sorry she's come to office the way she has, but now that she's in this position as the interim director, I promise you I'm going to do everything I can to work with her to make her job a pleasure to her and a blessing to this county. We will be working, I think all of us, many of us, very carefully to make sure that we have fair, transparent elections. That's a big concern to all of us. And so I want to just give notice, we're going to be looking carefully to make sure this is done properly. And then finally, Judge and distinguished commissioners, I just want to say that over the past several weeks, I've gotten to know more about Dallas County than I had in the previous 14 years of living here in Dallas. I've very much appreciated the briefings, the opportunities to see you guys in action, to hear from the staff, the breadth of knowledge, the commitment to the county has been inspiring to me and something that has inspired me to want to be more involved. And so I plan on coming down here every Tuesday morning and be down here as often as I can get down here to support good, sound government in the county that we all call home. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. May God bless you and this distinguished court. May God bless Dallas County.
God bless you. And that concludes our public speakers. Let me take a moment of personal privilege to thank some of the speakers today. I appreciate the more civil tone from some of the speakers, and one thing that's been on my heart, and I'll mirror what Ken said. The people in the Middle East. I know some people that are what do you call it? No longer allowed into their country in Libya, and so I do think the freedom of speech and the rights of those people and just freedom and democracy are important. I hope we'll remember all of our brothers and sisters in the Middle East, and particularly in Libya this week, as they battle for their freedom, and I hope that the new democracy that we hope spreads there will be one that is a democracy that respects individual rights. We truly live in a great country here in America, and it would be great if democracy would spread, and every child of God would have that opportunity.
Since you take some personal privilege, I'll take it.
All right, well,
it's interesting everybody wants to talk about amendment number 1, but it took us 13 more amendments to get 14.
Well, and with that, if there are no other comments, we will now recess and reconvene in public session for our closed session as authorized by Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code as previously posted. Any action in that closed session that requires public action will be dealt with in a subsequent